Ladies and gentlemen, I am actually thrilled to be able to say this. The legendary voice of Optimus Prime, Peter Cullen.
Are you all settled in?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Roll out.
Okay.
I really want to say sincere, I really mean this. I've been a fan of yours since I was a kid. It is a real thrill to have you here. And I think for all of us who grew up with Transformers, and I don't do this too often, but I really want to give you a thank you. Sincerely.
Thank you.
Sincerely, thank you for your work.
You guys look really comfortable. I mean, well, no wonder. Look, gee whiz. I was sitting in a theater in New York City yesterday, and they were so old. I mean, they still had bubble gum under the seats. You know?
This is the
double bubble, you know.
This is the IMAX headquarters. And before we go any further, I said it before, but I'll say it again. A huge thank you to IMAX for being such an awesome sponsor, and to Paramount for letting us screen the movie. So I have a bunch of questions. I want to start with going back in time. When did you first get involved in doing voices for TV? Or how did you get first involved?
With television, well, you have to go back further. When I was a kid, I could do sounds. And then eventually I could do my teachers. And I used to get in a lot of trouble. I mean, I really did. I flunked first grade. I did. Yeah, I did. And because I just could make people laugh. Man, when I worked on the farm, my aunts had a farm up in upstate New York, and I could do all the animals. By the end of the summer, I could do horses, cows, dogs, cats, lamb, sheep, pigs, chickens, anything I could do at the end of the year. And then, of course, grade 2 was a disaster because, you know, I would interrupt every class with it. Wait a minute. That was a calf. But nonetheless, that was the beginning. And eventually, it came to high school. And then I got into elocution, and elocution led to the end of high school, and then the National Theatre School of Canada, where I would impersonate everybody. So I would just impersonate people. And that led to getting parts. And then it led to comedy. And so I got into comedy in Canada with a show called Funny You Should Say That, and Comedy Cafe on television, Johnny Jellybean and his friends. All these wonderful vehicles to be funny, which brought me to California to do a show called It's a Wacky World that was going to replace Laugh-In. It's a 2-hour special that just dove. But at the same time, they needed an announcer to do a sound of a little gremlin inside a ball, and then it would say, "It's the Sonny and Cher Show." So I ended up being the announcer on the Sonny and Cher Show, as well as the little guy in the ball. And flags and all that stuff going on. Ladies and gentlemen, Sonny and Cher. And so that led on to television. That was how it happened. From a little kid in the first grade all the way to the little guy in the ball.
I'm so curious. You've done obviously tons of voices, as you've already demonstrated, besides Optimus. When you went in for some parts, whatever it may be, how much was it you the night before, coming up with the voice, and how much was it a collaboration with the director of the project, or you know what I mean? What was that relationship like to find the voice of a character?
Actually, it would just be my interpretation of what was written down. you would see a sketch of the character, what it looked like, and then an example of some of its dialogue. And I would always create it according to how it was built. If it had a thin neck, I'd make it more trumpet or, more strangled. If it was larger, more air, deeper. And then I looked at its comedy traits and how funny is it going to be, and how is he funny? Is he funny verbally, or is he funny the way he says it, or some obstruction? Maybe his lips are twisted or something. Whatever. So that's how most of them came to be. Would be the immediate interpretation on seeing the picture.
You have done countless voices besides Optimus, and we're going to get to Optimus. But what are some of your favorite characters that are not named Optimus Prime?
I love the characters that were easiest to do, that didn't require a lot of screaming and yelling and stuff like that, because, the screaming and yelling is hard work. But my favorite was, outside of Prime, was Eeyore. Thanks for noticing me. Not that anybody cares, man.
If you don't mind me asking, when you're recording, say, Eeyore or Optimus, do you have an amount of time before your voice gets tired, or can you do it for like hours and you've done the vocal, training that it can go all day?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I did King Kong, and I played not only King Kong, I had to play Mrs. Kong and Baby Kong too. So at the end of 11 years, 11 reels, I lost my voice and I was coughing up blood. So I said I told my agent, I said, I'm not going to do any more these monster stuff. It's just too hard. And then 20th Century Fox called the agency and said, we'd like to have Peter to help us with this voice for the Predator. Yeah, so that's how I came out. Who are you?
My next question was literally about Predator. And so do a lot of people know that you did Predator? Is one of these things where fans come up to you and want to talk about it, or is it always Optimus?
Well, I have a way of squeezing all that stuff in somehow. Because my imagination just keeps rolling around, and that last question you made about, is it difficult to do that stuff? And I said, yeah, that's how I came up with the Predator, because it wasn't a strain on the voice. And how I came up with that, I've told this story many times. I'm sure some of you know it. But years ago on the beach in Massachusetts, on the at low tide, there was an upside down horseshoe crab, and it was a hot day, and the bubbles were coming out of it, and its legs are like this, and all those bubbles are breaking, and they're making that little. So I figured that stuck in my brain. And when they asked me to do the Predator, what do you see? This gray streak went across the screen. And they say, can you come up with something? And I said, yeah. Bring that studio mic down here. It was one that was way up there, about 20 feet. And I said, no, bring it down. And the director behind me is getting really annoyed. And so they finally get it down to about right here where I need it. And I just said, I did it better back in those days, as this streak went across the screen. And he got so annoyed. He said, all right, that's enough. Okay. All right, he got up. He said, and the voice came from behind him and said, you better come up here and listen to this. He went up, and he was so cranky going up those stairs. And about 5 minutes later, he comes, hey, it's going like this. He had just found his happiness streak, and there it was. And so we did the whole film in that day. Yeah, did all of it, every reel. And they been using it ever since.
I was going to say that is a
for free.
I was going to say that's an iconic sound that everybody knows.
And it was just luck, and what came out of me at the time. Yeah, funny.
I know you've talked about it before, but we're filming this, and I'm sure there's going to be people in here who don't know. But let's jump into the Optimus voice and talk about when you first auditioned. Talk a little bit about going in for the role, and what was it like? Did you know what it was when you were auditioning? How did you come up with that voice when you were first going in?
Yeah, the first time I told this story, I almost cried. My brother and I, well, first of all, my brother was a captain in the Marine Corps, fought in Vietnam, and he was decorated Bronze Star with V and Purple Hearts, etc. And when he came home years later, we were sharing an apartment together, and we had one car. I was going through a difficult time of my life, and so we were stuck with the one car, and constantly, he was bigger by 5 inches, 13 months older, and a Marine. And if he wanted the car, he got the car, period. Peter, do you need the car? I said, yeah, Lar. He said, how long? I said, oh, maybe an hour and a half, maybe. Say, what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to an audition. Oh, not another one. Peter, you going to get a job one of these days? I said, no, it'll happen. It'll happen. He said, what are you auditioning for? I said, a truck. He laughed and he said, a truck? What does a truck sound like? I said, Larry, I don't know. It's a hero. He's a hero truck. He's a truck, so he's going to be a hero. It's a new cartoon series for kids. And he said, his face got very serious, and he just went, Peter, if you're going to be a hero, be a real hero. Don't be one of those Hollywood pretenders. Don't go yelling and screaming and pretending you're a tough guy. Be strong enough to be gentle. And that hung in my brain. I'm driving to the audition when I get there, and I look at the page, and it says, I am Optimus Prime, leader of the Cybertron, blah, 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 blah. And I just, Peter Cullen, take one. And I said, okay. I could have said, my name is Larry Cullen. Oh, God. And I rang out his K Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, 1st. And I said, wow. But I just did it in his voice, just saying, my name is Optimus Prime, from the planet Cybertron, leader of the Autobots. And that's bang. And then I read the rest of it and said, thank you. They said, thank you. Got in the station wagon and drove home. I said, Larry, it really went well, and I thank you. He said, what for? He said, I just impersonated you. 3 weeks later, I found out I got the job. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think it is about Optimus that has caused like generations of kids and adults to just love this character?
Well, I would have loved that character if I were a kid, because I feel my brother Larry all the time, and he was one of the greatest human beings I've ever known. A funny, kind, sensitive, strong, courageous. I mean, he did everything. He played professional football. He taught university. He built houses. There was nothing he didn't do. And as a giver of advice, and his friends were so many. He had one of the most incredible funerals in D.C. It was with the flyover. I mean, it made me cry, and it was synonymous with who he was, and that's who Prime is. And that's why I love doing Prime. And because it's not me, it's my brother. And when he has to say things that I don't think Larry would say, I'll tell him. I'll say, you know, he wouldn't say that. He wouldn't say that. And he said, what are you saying? I said, no, I don't think Prime would say that.
You've voiced the character, I believe, for 40 years. When you're in the booth, how much ownership do you feel as Larry or as Optimus when you're saying those lines? When, you know, is it something, you know what I mean? With are you ever changing that word, or how much ownership do you have?
Oh, I don't stumble for a second. No, Prime is inside of me, you know, because it's just the associative blessing that I have with my kin, you know, with Larry. It's just, there's no variation on it at all. It's that or nothing, you know. I'm
so curious because you were voicing Optimus in the 80s and you're voicing Optimus now. What was it like recording in the 80s versus recording Optimus now?
Well, you don't forget, I did Optimus Prime up until the movie in 1986, and where I was put to rest. There lays Optimus Prime. See a kid, anyway. And I didn't come back. I wasn't resurrected until the first Michael Bay film. So there's a lot of time in between. And however, I did come back to do a couple of 2 or 3 shows because the kids, a lot of kids evidently had trouble with that scene. And they were not coming out of their rooms and hiding under beds, I was told. So they brought me back for 3 shows. The Mothers of America went to the powers to be, and so they had to bring me back. But then that's when I went to sleep again permanently, and I didn't touch it until that first movie with Michael.
What was it like, though, is the recording similar? Is it different? What was it like back then versus the way it is now?
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. We would be, how many actors on that show? We had so many, and we'd all line up standing behind our microphones. And in that room were some of the most talented, greatest guys, you know, and girls, couple. And behind the glass windows, you know, the directors and other people. And they would have to tolerate us, and we were we were always doing. And people smoked in those days, so I mean that place was just a madhouse, you know. Do you have to smoke? I don't smoke. Well, who's smoking here? Oh, it's me. I'm sorry. But Frank Welker, you know, he and I, we got along so well together, and we ended up doing a lot of series together, and we had fun. I mean, real fun. You would be in a very serious situation, and all of a sudden you'd hear what would sound like an elevator in the background, you know, and they'd say, "Cut, let's do that." And says, "What's the sound?" He says, "Oh, there's an elevator back there." He said, "That's not an elevator," and then Frank would do his elevator. Or he'd do a leaky faucet, or he'd do a bird outside a window. I mean, he could just do it. He's the king. Anyway, so we had a lot of laughter, and that was great. And then when it came along in the movie, I worked alone. That was Michael Bay and I in a sound booth, or sound room, and with a camera on my lips. One about where the third row is, and one right here on the side, staring right at me. And what, geez, you know, right in your face. You'll go, ah. And you had to get over that. And so, and working just to pencil sketches in some cases, you know. Optimus Prime, do something with all this stuff going on, and it's just a pencil sketch. and doing my lines. And then Michael would say something to the effect, Peter, can you make him bigger? Make him bigger. He's 45 feet tall, you know. I said, yeah. And you know, on television, he's only about this big. So, okay. So that changed the voice a little bit, you know. And I used to have a lot of fun back in the early days, you know. I'd even throw in a little John Wayne, you know. What do you say, mister? You know, just for the fun of it. And I do some water blending at the same time. Get him over me. Anyway, a couple of ducks. No, take your pill, Peter. Which one? Whoops, sorry.
So you spoke on the animated movie. I saw that when I was much younger, and I love that line, one shall stand, one shall fall. And the way you deliver that line, it has some awesome animation in that movie. When you were doing that scene, that line, did you realize that, like, it's a big moment, I think, for a lot of Transformers fans. Did you realize it was going to be a big moment?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a good old grunt guy, get it on line, you know. One shall stand, one shall fall. You know. You know.
Do you can you, if you don't mind, let's go back a little bit when you were recording that, because the animated movie, what was it like recording the animated movie? Because that was a really big deal at the time after the animated series, and it was going to be in theaters. You know, what did it mean to you? What was it like recording it?
Oh, the first movie?
Yeah, the animated movie from the 80s.
Yeah. Well, I got to be honest. You know, I was sitting next to Frank Welker, and I got to the point where I said, "Hey, Frank, where are you?" He says, "On page 3. He says, "I'm on 17. I'm getting whacked." What? He said, and I don't come back. He said, "No way." And I said, yeah, no way. Gee whiz. So I didn't really care after that. I didn't care. That's it. On to another show, on to another job. I don't know what it's going to be. Doesn't care. It doesn't matter. That's what show business is, especially in voiceover, because you do more than 3 voices. You get paid for 1, and you have to do 3. And if you do 4, you have to get paid an extra character. So we always wanted to do 4. Of course, Frank Welker, he'd do 8 voices. And he had this huge house out in Mo. Anyway, so it's how many series you did. You know, I did back in those days, we did a ton of series. It's not like today. Yeah, it's not like today. Back in those days, you had to do multiple voices. But a lot of the kids today, they only can do 1 voice. A lot of them. And some of them do it at home. Gee. And they get paid a fortune. I think we got paid $123 a show back in the day. Yeah. And we'd have to do 3 characters. Yeah. And then the reruns, they rerun up until 10. The prices would come down. So you had to do volume in those days. You had to do a lot, you know, to break it, you know, to get into it, to get there, you know, and get a couple of hit shows before you didn't have to buy a used car. Yeah. It was, but today, wow. The avenues it's huge. I mean, look at all the outlets. Wow. Yeah, for a kid today, God bless them. You know, wow. Good luck, and hats off to them, you know.
So he was told he's still the best.
Huh?
You were told you're still the best at voices.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So one of the things you touched on it a little bit, though, with the animated movie getting knocked off on page 17, but a lot of people, or I think the producers, did not realize how popular Optimus was and what the character meant to so many people. Because when I was researching, prepping to talk to you, I read how many kids were leaving the theater crying. Yeah. And so I'm just curious, when did you realize, was it that movie that you realized, oh, wait, this character is very popular?
I didn't know. There was no thermometer back in those days. You know, there was no internet. There was nothing where people could send in their feelings. And fan mail, we never received. We never got it. It never went to us personally. So we had no thermometers to judge that. And, you know, the first thing, honestly, I mean, I said, who the hell did I politely annoy? You know, who did I annoy? What did I do? You look at yourself and then you say, forget it. You know, go on to the next audition, you know. You get it behind you. But that's, you know.
I'll just move on to something else.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I'll just move on. So one of the things about Rise of the Beasts, which is what everyone just saw, is that Steven Caple, your director, was a fan since he was a kid, and I would imagine that that excitement must have come in when he was recording with you and directing you in the booth. So talk a little bit about working with someone who's a huge fan, who's now the director.
What a pleasure. I mean, what a pleasure. I guess it's the first time in my life where I ever worked with a director that that knew who I was, you know, and appreciated me for it. So, I mean, it was probably, I loved going to work. When they called me, I couldn't wait to get there. And he's such a great guy and so talented. I just, I enjoy him immensely. And I'm sure he's going to have an incredible career. Yeah,
he's going to land on his feet. He's going to be okay. I definitely want to know, you just saw the movie the other night. Is it still a thrill for you? What is your feeling when you're going into a theater to watch Optimus for the first time in a new movie, knowing everyone thinks of you as the character because you are the character? What is it like watching it?
Well, very self-conscious. I'm self-conscious here too because I can't really see you guys out there. That lights are so bright. And somebody just gave me the finger. I swear to God.
No, that is not true. That is
I see 5. Right. Whoa, that was close. So, no, I'm very aware of it, and you know, and it's important to me. You know, how can you avoid not feeling the power of it all? You know, I mean, how many people go to a premiere where you're, you know, isolated as perhaps one of the, you know, the key roles in it, but it's a humbling feeling. It's very humbling and nerve-wracking and a long way from home, you know?
For sure.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be my last question for you. For people that, for people that want to do what you're doing, is there any advice you want to give them about how to do voices, what you learned, or, you know, anything you want to pass on to another generation of people that are so inspired by your work?
Well, thanks. That's a good question too. I think you have to listen to people that tell you, you know, you're really good at something and you should try out and, or try to do that. Or, hey, you know, if you're an athlete or whatever, I mean, if you feel it yourself, you should get out and stick with it, do it, because believe me, you know, if you work at it, you will become successful eventually, no matter what it is. It's like working a muscle. The more you work it, the bigger it gets. And if you do something you love, that's what I tell kids. If you find something you love to do it. Stick with it. And you'll never work a day in your life. You love it. It's just a holiday.
On that note, Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say a huge thank you to Peter Cullen for joining us this evening after our screening.